And I'll let you introduce our next speaker. Hi, Debbie.
Yep, I think, in the interest of time, and our next speaker has a lot to say, so I think we'll.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, Debbie. Welcome.
Okay, thanks. Just checking. Hey.
Yeah, so I think Debbie, you've got a ton to talk about today. So since we're a few minutes in advance, I'll do a quick intro, and then you'll have like the full time. And just really quickly, correct me if I'm wrong, but you want to take questions in a separate session, or you want to do them in this one?
Yeah, I think I do think that my talk is going to take up pretty much most of the hour. I tried to cut it down, but it was impossible. So everyone should look in the Hopin system, go to sessions and just search for me, and you will see a Q&A session. And I'm going to jump over to that after my hour here. And I'm happy to take questions there. Or, of course, most people know they can email me. They can contact me. I'm happy to connect.
Great. So, well, if you're just joining us, welcome. This is 24 Hours of UX 2022. We are at the halfway mark. So we are halfway through the program. It's quite amazing to have been up myself since maybe 4:30 in the morning Central European time. Yeah, and it's just going to go on. The next talk is by Debbie Levitt. I'm so glad you're joining me today, Debbie, on stage. I've been a great admirer of yours and following you for a long time. Sort of maybe in the shadows a bit, because I work in the field of UX. I work with clients on complex software projects, and we are fighting a lot of the same battles over and over again, year in and year out. And you're somebody who I've often turned to for inspiration to sort of understand. I understood mentally the value of UX, but I couldn't really articulate it the way that you've done, and try to communicate it to different types of stakeholders. So often UXers talk to UXers, and we all understand one another, and it's really crystal clear. But when you speak to somebody else in a different role in an organization, they may have never heard of UX, or they think it's just making something pretty at the end of the process. It's like I had a boss back, I used to work in Silicon Valley. I had a boss that often talked about, at the end of the development process, we're going to put the lipstick on the pig. And, sometimes that's how I feel that people view user experience. It's making things look good at the end of a process. And that really software development is all about technology and the agile religion almost, at the without really understanding what customers are, and without really understanding who the people that are going to be using the software are. So you get a lot of, I know our users, we ran a survey, well, we know our users, we talk to them every day, this kind of thing. So you've really been a voice sort of somewhat in the wilderness, but we wanted to give you this opportunity to say your piece, and I think it's going to be super valuable, folks. I really want everybody to listen really hard. Write up your questions, put them in the Q&A, and Debbie will then take those questions in her Q&A session afterwards. So there's a lot of content to cover. I believe this is normally a 9-hour course condensed into 60 minutes.
I just turned up my volume. Is this better? Someone
Much
said
better, yeah.
Okay,
we hear
I
you
can
much
use
better.
as loud as you like, because I've got a knob.
So, and I hope you don't have to sing, but if you feel like it, go right ahead, because I know you're a singer.
I'm used to not wanting to get copy strike on YouTube, but I realize I'm not on YouTube. I'm hearing it's a little quiet. How's it now? No, I'm redlining.
Okay. I think it's pretty good, at least for me.
This is not redlining. This is about as loud as it should get. Otherwise, I'm seeing that I'm redlining. I don't want to distort.
I hear you loud and clear.
Okay, super. Hopefully this is good enough for the peeps.
I will disappear from the stage and join you at the end. And
Here
we go. Thanks
Set up
very
my
much.
shared screen. And thank you, Jesse. Thanks to everybody for including me in this, especially as a keynote speaker. I just want to apologize that I'm suffering from spring allergies and I end up sneezing and coughing and my throat hurts and I'm drinking a lot of water. So I don't want you to think, I don't want to say I don't want you to think there's anything wrong with me. There is something wrong with me, but it's just spring allergies. So I apologize if I'm sniffly and drinking a lot of water. So so we decided that I was going to do a 50 to 60-minute version of my transforming toward customer centricity. But as Jesse mentioned, it is a 9-hour workshop that I'm doing right now. If you find that you're into it, you can find it on the Delta CX website. I have it as both a video course and a live workshop that I'm doing in July. And I've designed it to be affordable to everyone on the planet. So it is super cheap. So let's jump in. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Debbie Levitt. I'm a CX and UX strategist, designer, researcher, trainer, speaker, all around wacky person. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I'm not an artist, so I come more from the psychology side of things. But, you know, I have a weird background. I have a bachelor's in music and I have an MBA. My company is called Delta CX. That's also the name of our community. So come join the Delta CX low ego action heroes, as we call ourselves. And Delta CX is a full service CX and UX agency. We do projects and training and consulting. And clients call me Mary Poppins because I fly in, fix everything I can, sing a few songs, and fly away to where I'm needed next. I like to do a short visual description for those who might have visual issues. I would describe myself as a 50-year-old white woman with long, wavy hair. I'm a little out of shape, and I'm shorter than my big personality would have you believe. And everything that's on my slides is just, you know, visual blah, blah, blah. So if you can't see the slides for any particular reason, accessibility or otherwise, if anything's worth describing, I'll describe it. And please make sure if you're connecting with me on LinkedIn, you tell me that you saw me here today. Otherwise, I might not accept because it's a world of wackiness out there. And please do subscribe to our Delta CX YouTube channel where I'm live roughly 4 hours a week teaching UX and taking your questions. I also want to mention, backwards. I also want to mention that I'm saying CX and UX interchangeably. I had to cut the slide on why because I had to cut for time. But you might hear me say CX, you might hear me say UX, and really I mean the same thing. You might think of it as UX. I think of it as both. I think when CX and UX are done well, they are the same thing. So I don't want to die on that hill today. You can fight me later. And I also don't want to die on the hill of who's a customer and who's a user, who's a human, who's a dog. If I say customer or user, I mean those interchangeably as well. So, you know, just think of someone who's going to interact with us and possibly do business with us, whether or not they're paying or the decision maker or whatever, current potential customer. Let's not die on these hills today, okay? So to jump in about customer centricity, let me start with what I would say are my 11 pillars of customer centricity. And they are business strategies, goals, and initiatives are based on what we've learned about current and potential customers. We've got to research first and often. Guesses are signs that we need more research and knowledge. Quality and value are defined by our customers. They're not defined by the stakeholder. They're not defined by the C-level executive. Our customers will tell us what they perceive as quality in 5 stars out of 5. We must be customer obsessed, not competitor obsessed. Competitors are often getting it wrong, and they're already working on their next thing. So why would we steal their current thing? That's not disruptive or innovative, and it might be a mismatch for our target users. Let's be task-oriented, not feature-oriented, which I'll talk more about later. And let's see, where am I? Oh, we're always checking for product market fit. Every feature, every product or service, if it doesn't match customers' needs, or especially if it works against customers' needs, we should stop and question why we would knowingly build something with poor product market fit. Teams are given the time and budget to do their best work. Can I hear an amen? Ethics, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We can't be customer-centric if we're not invested in all of our customers. And we're not customer-centric when we trick customers into actions they didn't mean to take. So reduce and eliminate tricks and deceptive design, formerly known as dark patterns. Real accountability, including actions and follow through. Holy cats, y'all, there's no accountability at any of our companies anymore. We need to create more accountability. Accountability needs to have grown up teeth, and we need to follow through on the people who are working against our values and creating disaster projects. Critical thinking and speaking up must be rewarded. We've got to empower all of our workers, employees, whatever they might be. I want to see customer experiences and business metrics both improving together. And of course, you've heard me say this before, quality over speed. Well, what does the opposite of this look like? And I think the best model would be the costs of poor quality, which comes from Lean Six Sigma, which means I didn't make it up and it's easy to Google if you're curious about it. Now, Lean Six Sigma's costs of poor quality say start with what the company spent internally on the project and all the time it took multiple teams. How about marketing costs and sales efforts? Did anybody write training on whatever this feature is? What did it cost us to delay other work to have to fix this? You can start to imagine all of the time and money spent internally on the project. But then there's also external costs. You might have to work with someone from customer support to see what complaints, issues, or tickets they have about your product's features, because they've got them and they've categorized it. And can we find numbers on customers who canceled or downgraded? Can we figure out the costs of MVPs and especially failed MVPs? What about environmental costs for physical objects? What's the environmental cost when everybody needs a replacement part or a dongle? Companies are sweeping the costs of poor quality under the rug. So it's important for you to be documenting any parts of your projects that might have these wastes or costs. Add it to your risk documentation. Bring it up in retro. Agile claims we want to constantly reflect on how we're doing and get better. To nudge our company toward customer centricity, we'll probably have to do some digging on past projects because we all know of at least one project at our company that was a disaster, right? You were there. Time spent, money wasted, morale was awful, customers unhappy. What did it cost? Do we know? Can we estimate it? We might have to mention that project here and there to remind people of why we have to have higher standards for what gets released to customers. And when we talk about the ROI, it's all on this screen. These are the costs that we will save by doing a better job the first time, I guess next time. Customer centricity is hot, and some teams are starting to ask good questions. Look and listen for allies. Scrum Masters are asking why we have so many failed MVPs. Project managers are looking at the costs of features we guessed at. Agile coaches are realizing no innovations came out of that workshop. Strategists and marketing are wondering, why is it so hard to consistently meet our goals? Are our goals even reasonable? Support and CX and are reporting higher complaints, angry tweets, and low ratings. Sales is struggling to win or retain customers. Maybe we know we're losing to competitors. We're hearing more about the importance of CX. Or how about Amazon is customer obsessed, so we should do that too. Hey, any door is an open door. Let's walk through it. Since bad KPIs are common at many companies, let's spend a little bit of time understanding Northstar Metrics, though this is a very short version, and I suggest Googling Northstar Metrics to learn more. Your Northstar metric matches, well, at least it should, essential business and user goals. It's that main way our company will measure success that's likely to lead to other things we want, like revenue. Some well-known companies have made their Northstar metric public, so I found a few from last year, like Spotify, time spent listening, Amazon, number of purchases per month, Airbnb, number of nights booked, Quora, number of questions answered, Uber, rides per week. Notice that these are leading metrics. They're upfront customer actions. They're not the results or outcomes from actions like revenue or profit. They're metrics around direct user actions. You can also see this as, if we understand target users' needs and tasks and we build what matches those, we should be able to generally measure that success through this main number. The Northstar metric is an early moment where customer experiences would be considered a success. Getting an answer to a Quora question and listening to Spotify music are good Northstar metrics because they indicate user success. We can measure them, and we can create innovations or incremental improvements that can lift these numbers. They're also tied to business success in that if Quora users are getting more answers and Spotify users are listening to more music, we might be meeting or exceeding business goals. There are other measurable moments that can happen before someone gets a Quora answer or plays a Spotify song, like posting the question or searching for a song. Those are our input metrics that we could measure, but they're not the true mark of user success. Slack and Facebook are doing it a little differently. They're counting active users. They just want to count breathing humans. It's not about the actions people take. It's just they're here. But it's a little different for Slack, who charges by the active user. This is a bit of an input metric around behavior. Are people using the Slack workspace? But it'll also directly lead to revenue. Facebook just wants to count active humans and bots for a big vanity metric, which is a reminder that sometimes companies put the customer experience aside to make the numbers or create lifts in metrics that executives are looking for. Let's look at an example. If the Northstar metric is a mismatch, it can cause what I'm calling customer periphery, not the opposite of customer centricity. They are in our peripheral vision. We might not be focused on real customers' needs that lead to customer and business success. For example, imagine a dating site is measuring how many people clicked that they like you, or how often the dating site notifies you that there's new members near you, or how many times someone looked at your profile. Well, those are nice, but that's not really a measure of customer or business success for a dating website. What about more time in our dating ecosystem? That's nice, but also not a measure of customer or business success. More time might mean they're having trouble finding a good match. How about the number of profile matches that we send you? If we measured success by the number of profiles the system suggested to you, we might build features that send as many humans as possible each week, regardless of the quality of those matches. While some people are into quantity when they're on a dating website, most people are looking for quality. But if quantity were our KPI or Northstar metric, our teams might cook up features like ignoring your search filters, suggesting matches that are really far away from you, or suggesting people with very different views and lifestyles. You could see a rise in metrics, but is this the right rise? Let's look at some examples of how a key KPI becoming customer periphery as we drive everything in product, CX, and engineering towards making those numbers look good. We just looked at how a dating site focusing on numbers of profiles we claim are matches could lead to teams making some customer peripheric choices. I've got an interesting story related to this. I met my future husband on OkCupid. He lived in Italy and asked OkCupid for very local matches. I lived in San Francisco and I asked OkCupid for anybody in North America. We think a glitch showed him my profile. He looked, decided I was too far away, and didn't write to me. At the time, OkCupid had a list you could look at of people who looked at your profile and then didn't take action. I was checking that list at the time in case it had any good matches who were shy, and I hit the life and love jackpot. But OkCupid later announced that they were going to remove that page because if anybody saw your profile and didn't contact you, they're obviously not interested and they're just a waste of time. This makes me wonder what KPI they were trying to meet that this worked against. And it makes me wonder how many people missed out on meeting their shy but perfect person. As another example, if a company had page views as a KPI, this could result in teams building processes and workflows that happen across multiple pages. Rather than building a more efficient process that happens on just a page or just more simply and efficiently, you are dragged across multiple pages. Maybe the login is its own page, so we can count one more page people saw this month. You might also see those slow motion dragged out processes if our KPI is more time on the page. Oh, sorry, I lost my place in my notes. Oh, yeah, more time on pages. That is left over from another era. And sometimes that means our teams might not be too worried if pages load slowly because we celebrate, hooray, when people are on pages for more time. And if we imagine that Facebook is shooting for as many active users as possible each month, then their system might welcome fake accounts and bots because we want those active user numbers to look big and growing. We might see teams building features deliberately that make it hard to cancel or delete Facebook. I remember when I canceled years ago, it said that my profile was going to be active for 2 more weeks. That means people are liking, commenting, and messaging you, and it's all designed to make you feel like you're missing out and you better stay. But it's also bad for that profile to be up for 2 weeks if someone's safety has been compromised or threatened and they need to close their account immediately. That wasn't an option. These are examples of KPIs and metrics creating experiences that are customer peripheral. So it's important to track how your KPIs and OKRs will manifest in team behavior and the product. Using our dating site example, a better Northstar metric could be the number of messages people are sending to each other. Like Spotify wants to measure listening time and Uber wants to measure number of rides, a dating site might find that a key metric leading to success and revenue is people messaging each other. Want to dial that up and really check for quality in both directions? Consider a Northstar metric around the number of messages that receive more than one reply. Anybody can send a message. Anybody can get a reply, even if that reply is no thanks or please go away. Maybe the conversation doesn't go beyond that. Maybe one person blocks the other. Additional replies could signify a good match and possible connection between humans. This gets us closer to dating site success without measuring obvious things like revenue. If you're not in a position to affect strategy or KPIs, talk to your manager and other people. Find support for our company taking a second look at bad KPIs and how they manifest in decisions, ethics, and our product. Because change can start from anywhere. I'm recommending that for improved customer centricity, as you're making your plan about how whoever's going to make that change is going to approach it, you probably want to look at process playbooks, which I know some teams are doing more and more. But warning, many process playbooks that you can find online or are from corporate trainers and authors and other people who are product managers. They often give a lot of power to product. They sometimes say product can do UX work. So this might run against the change that you're trying to shepherd. You'll want to rewrite these playbooks or create your own because the UX team has to own UX. You shouldn't need someone else's permission to document how UX is done well and what that looks like. So we might have a playbook around how should we do product or service discovery? What role does research play? Now, if your product discovery process uses the same user-centered design process as projects that aren't discovery, maybe you just need one playbook. But if you you might have two playbooks, which I'm doing where I'm consulting right now, and the other one is going to be our UX collaboration playbook. What does CX or UX do? Where are others involved or not involved? When do you need CX or UX? Is there something you can do yourself if you don't have a CX or UX resource? Not much, please. This can help establish that autonomy and specialty that most UX teams wish they had. Maybe you're going to detail how CX and UX work with Agile or Scrum. How do we bake great customer centricity into and accessibility and 5-star quality into the definition of done? Get it all in the playbook. Write the playbook for the change you want to see. Don't write anything in here that gives away our power that you're going to try to undo later with evangelism. This is your chance to set the rules. You might also need internal training or some sort of sessions to socialize your new playbooks and their new processes. So make sure that your training and your playbooks detail who to speak to if there are questions about the new processes or if someone has any suggestions for improvement. They treat them as living documents. Make sure the playbook has details about every step of the process, the tasks for this step, and why we do this step. Create swim lanes or boundaries so that people aren't doing or trying to do each other's jobs. And that's especially important because of the fake or real overlap we sometimes see between product and UX. There's conflicts there where we think we need to do each other's jobs. So, and we also in our playbook want to differentiate between who leads that step and who's a collaborator. And this is a good spot, again, to gently word those boundaries that will fix some of the problems you have now. For example, you might say that only UX decides when we need a workshop, and they get to choose the methods and be the facilitator. That should hopefully stop that non-UX team from trying to run design workshops. Make sure you also have in your playbook outcomes and outputs for each step. Make sure they're actionable so that they're informing and driving the next step. Any tools or templates or methods that we prefer. Success criteria. Common pitfalls. What mistakes are often made during this step? What does failure or doing something incorrectly look like? Again, this is your chance to create some boundaries and undo some bad habits or processes that might be at your company. Before you create that change and break down some walls and rebuild them, you should map out and consider some of the blockers that can prevent change from happening. You might be able to predict these, or they might come up as you go. Add them to your plan with the appropriate dependencies. For example, I found that some companies think that the main ingredient needed for change is more training. Let's send everybody to Debbie's training so we'll all be ready to improve customer centricity. Sure, but there will still be blockers. Do we have enough CX or UX researchers to do all of the research that being user-focused requires us to do? If not, the change could still stall or fail. We will first need to hire more researchers or shift some researchers to our early, more customer-centric projects so that even one or two teams are ready to try our new ways of working. Are our teams empowered to break out of how we do things now and try new processes, methods, and approaches? Did we plan the time we're going to need to try new ways of working? It's going to take us longer than before. Did we estimate this time and update our roadmap? Did we change our release schedule so that nobody's surprised the new project is taking longer than usual? How will we measure customer centricity adventures? How will we measure if they're working or where we need to improve? Do we have KPIs and OKRs in place? Are we ready to track and measure those? Does the team believe we're tracking or obsessed with the wrong numbers? See previous slides. Are teams under pressure to deliver customer peripheral KPIs? Figure this out before you experiment with changes and map out your change dependencies. Now, everybody who's ever heard me talk knows that I have about, 6 hours of content on what I call aspirologies. But because of my time today and that it's almost half done, I'm just going to give you the one slide version. So let's talk really quickly about things that can work against customer centricity. I see things that I believe are false gods. They're models that I don't think are as strong as we think. And we think that they're going to help us with customer centricity or UX evangelism or UX maturity, but I find that more often they are working against it. So I call them aspirologies because I feel like they don't deserve to be called methodologies. Again, I have hours about this, and if you're curious, you can go to YouTube and search for Delta CX 115, and that'll give you one of my long videos on this stuff. Shorter version. So the main aspirologies you're going to run into are design sprints, design thinking, so-called lean UX, which is neither lean nor UX, and democratization. Aspirologies have some common characteristics that you and others will easily recognize, like codependency. CX seems to need everybody to do their job with and for them. Disrespect of teammates' time. Aspirologies love speed over quality, but they're increasing business and project risk by running with guesses, thinking that'll save time. They often start with whatever a stakeholder says is our problem, but Don Norman and others would remind us to reject that and find the real root causes. Astrologies love to give specialized work to non-specialists. They give UX work to people who might not have any UX knowledge, skill, experience, or even talent. But where else would we do that? We don't hold workshops where everybody, including me, decides the back-end database architecture. Democratizing and decentralizing is fake. A lot of non-CX roles want to have authority and decision-making power over the user experience, but those roles aren't giving up power or decision-making authority in their domain. We don't have the cross-functional team all making engineering or marketing decisions. Magically, the cries for democracy are only for UX, which means our demands for democratization aren't democratic. How about fake team building? If these workshops were really how we built teams, we would do them in every domain. We would have product, maybe even project, engineering, BA, and marketing workshops, but we don't, because high-performing teams respect each other's specialties and play to each other's strengths rather than trying to turn everybody into a broad generalist. Oh, you're going to see fake customer centricity. We pretend that we care about customers and their satisfaction, but we guess who they are and what they need. We don't observe the people that we're building for. We pretend we have empathy and sympathy, but if we really cared about users' experiences, we wouldn't deliver so much garbage to them that doesn't solve their problems. There's a lot of innovation theater, but how many truly never before seen world premiere ideas are coming out of workshops versus how many of these solutions were wrong, non-viable, or based on guesses versus being based on good research? Voting for the winner. Somehow we don't all need to get together, brainstorm various product roadmaps, and vote for the winner. And we shouldn't pick product features or concepts like it's American Idol. We run usability tests with real users. We don't hang designs at our desk and ask everybody to vote. Lots of emotional outcomes in aspirologies. Everybody really enjoyed the workshop. But where's the real budget and ROI figures? What were our success criteria? Did we even have success criteria? You're going to hear lots of buzzwords thrown in so that it sounds like CX or UX or Agile. You're going to hear customer journey maps, personas, prototypes, testing, problem solving, empathy. But so much of it is theater. And we're teaching leaders in our company that design or problem solving takes hours, maybe days. If you need to solve a problem or design a product, just throw some people in a room for hours or days. Aspirologies teach that we don't have to hire more UX specialists because we can all just get together and guess at solutions. This undoes respect for and understanding of UX. It undoes customer centricity by focusing on speed over quality. And it's going to be hard to teach the value of good design and deep, thorough work while teaching teammates and leaders that CX and UX can be done quickly by workshops and templates. This is hurting our profession and the quality of what we deliver to customers. I think it'll probably only go away when people start calculating the costs of all of this time spent. Costs of poor quality. And then we also have fake agile and fake lean working against us. And we fill our world with catchy sayings that we use as excuses when we're not agile, not lean, and not building what customers would give 5 stars out of 5, like just ship it, without knowing if it's even the right solution. We'll fix it later. Will we really fix it later? When is later? And what will we have to delay? What does that cost? Why are we releasing something we know is broken and needs to be fixed later? Users will have to figure it out, or they'll flood you with support tickets, or they'll cancel or leave or give up. Fail fast. There's nothing cool about failing fast or slowly when real paying or trial customers have to suffer with that failure. If you're not embarrassed, you shipped too late. Does this mean that our goal is to be embarrassed by our product? Most of us would prefer to feel proud that our product is a great match to customers' tasks. Lean is the least we can do to get us to the next step. Lean disagrees. This is a bastardization of lean that came from the Lean Startup book. Anybody who has studied Toyota's original approach to lean or Lean Six Sigma knows that lean is about identifying and cutting waste. But fake lean is wasteful and takes us down wrong paths, which means I want to cut fake lean for not being lean. Move fast and break things, only if you fix those things before the public struggles with them. It's good enough for the engineering team, for stakeholders, or for our paying and trial customers. We've been experimenting with speed over quality techniques now for years. It should be obvious, from project costs, ROI, customer support tickets, morale, people quitting, tweets about us, our stock price. This doesn't always work. We've got to stop praying to the gods of speed over quality and give your customers broken things. We shouldn't be using these as excuses for low effort or failure. This is risky, it's wasteful, it's not agile, and I'm just tired of hearing these excuses. You should be too. Let's speak up and say something. Speaking of things I don't want to hear about, let's talk about how MVPs are rarely customer centric. When someone mentions the MVP, sorry, I jumped a little. Someone just subscribed to my channel. Thank you. I heard it go off in my head. When someone mentions the MVP, this cartoon is typically brought out. It shows you wouldn't build a car by starting with one wheel, then two wheels, then the car's body, and finally a full car. It says the MVP is really more like building a skateboard first, then a kick scooter, then a bicycle, a motorcycle, and finally the car you wanted to build in the first place. But in reality, neither of these are the MVP. If we are starting with sad user faces, we're getting this wrong. In both examples, the early products you're releasing to users aren't close to what you're trying to build. If users need a car, neither a single wheel nor a skateboard will be a match to their needs. The MVP was intended mostly for startups who had no UX staff, no product staff, and no research about target users' needs, tasks, or workflows. Startups who were trying to impress investors by showing how fast they are. That's not who we are, not by far. So is the MVP still right for us? When our users don't want minimally viable anything, we've got to make sure everything releases 5 stars out of 5. And another problem is that since we're often in feature factories, the CX team is typically told to build a skateboard, often without knowing if the car will ever exist or what users needed that could end up looking like a car. This means that we design for the now and the box that we've been put in. We're not able to think ahead or future-proof the project by designing that ultimate solution. So reframe the MVP. If you want to release a slice of something first, make sure it delivers maximum user value. Instead of a skateboard, it's a small car. The MVP is supposed to be a tiny slice of our solution to check if we're going in the right direction. If you're releasing a full product, that's not an MVP. If you don't go back and fix it, it's not an MVP. Remember that CX and UX are business intelligence, customer intelligence, and risk mitigation. We can know before engineers write code if this is the right execution of the right idea. So what do we do now instead of aspirologies to help us be more focused? Well, we've got to be better partners to our teammates, but we're going to have to push back against processes and approaches that are creating negative customer outcomes and or negative internal experiences. And in a lot of cases, these are poor implementations of Agile and bad staffing and allocation of CX and UX teams. Let's start by making sure everybody knows what user-centered design is. This is a UX conference, I think you know, but I find that there's a lot of people, especially newer to UX, who don't know. So user-centered design, also called human-centered design, has a lot of phases, including research, content strategy, information architecture, interaction design, testing, and visual design. And each of these phases have multiple tasks that you can do. So professionals have to approach this process strategically, deciding which tasks are needed, how long those will take, in what order we'll do them, and what resources are required. And the order is important because each phase is going to inform what we do next. Research informs everything. Information architecture informs interaction design. And even though I've made this look linear, it's definitely fluid and cyclical. Like testing our interaction design concepts often leads to iteration. So another round of information architecture and design, hopefully another round of testing before we call this completed. So that means that, in a sense, our work is spiraling its way to the best design solution by understanding root causes and removing the bugs. And you'll also hear a lot about models that say learn, build, and test. And that's an oversimplification, but learning, building, and testing is baked into user-centered design. You'll also hear about discover, define, design, validate, and iterate. Double Diamond is a derivative of UCD. All of these models and processes can be superimposed onto the phases and tasks of user-centered design. So if you want to understand target customers, their needs, perspectives, tasks, decision-making, priorities, or frustrations, or you want to learn how they define quality and value, especially before you've wasted time and money building a guess or something we hope people will like, you'll need to do proper CX or UX qualitative research. You'll need to use user-centered design. Don't skimp on the process and use a speed over quality aspirology like design thinking or design sprints. Increasing customer satisfaction and loyalty are a marathon, not a sprint. Customers find having their needs understood and then met or exceeded to be quality when they don't have to figure it out or call customer support, when they don't want to throw their computer or phone out a window, when they're not checking out your competitors because they're sick of you. The absence of evil is a great start towards quality. But I want to say clearly that I can't tell you exactly what your customer would say is 5 stars out of 5. I can only tell you that correctly planned, executed, and analyzed research. I'll put up this graphic on my video. Planned and analyzed research is going to be the way to go. It's really what is going to tell you what best matches customers. A/B tests can't tell us. Focus groups can't tell us. Surveys are often flawed. Cycles of guesses are a slow motion, expensive, and risky way to try to figure out what customers want. Stealing from competitors might not work. What's high quality at Six Flags might be unspeakably low quality at Disney World. Observational qualitative research is your best bet so that you truly understand your target audiences and replace guesses and assumptions with knowledge. If you're not sure what your customers would find to be a high quality product or service or what they think is good enough, it's time to observe them and their tasks. So I want to talk about task analysis, which I prefer over jobs to be done. So this is a process that I would like to see people shifting towards. It's normally done after qualitative research, like observing users and interviewing them. You can't really do a good task analysis after a survey or certainly not an A/B test. Even diary studies, people might leave out steps or workarounds because they forgot or thought they weren't important to mention. So it's important to observe people to get all those missing puzzle pieces. Task analysis starts with a researcher creating a flow detailing every step the user takes. This is the what. What did people do? The researcher then adds notes relating to the tools, knowledge, workarounds that the users employed to accomplish that step. That's the how of each step. They check the sticky note they keep at their desk. They asked a coworker where's the right form. They opened up some photo editing software. We also add issues, concerns, anything that might end up a blocker or obstacle for this step. By documenting tools, knowledge, workarounds, issues, concerns, and obstacles, that gives us 6 new categories where we can find behaviors, themes, preferences, unmet needs, insights, and opportunities. Sure, we want to improve steps of the process, but we can also make improvements that account for these other areas. Researchers then analyze the task flow and what we learned from our observations and interviews. Look for knowledge gaps, the difference between what we assumed people knew or understood and what they actually know or understand. Let me give you an example. So we did some research last year with an e-commerce site where we told people you have $1,000 to buy 125 of these, and we watched what people did. And one of the first things almost everybody did was open up a smartphone calculator or take out a real calculator. They did 1,000 divided by 125, and they said, okay, I have $8 per item, and they shopped based on items that were around $8 per item. Everybody ended up over budget at the end, except one woman. When she did the math, she said, I don't really have $8 per item. You're going to add setup fees and shipping costs and tax. I bet I have $6 per item. And she was right. So not only did we see the calculator used as a tool, but we also saw the knowledge only one person out of 27 had, that shopping for this type of item tended to have a lot of added costs at the end. So then you create an optimized task flow by looking at anywhere the system can take workload off the user. That's not just automation, it's also intelligently and deliberately architecting for this knowledge, what we expect people to know or remember that they probably don't. Build knowledge into the system. Deliberately architect for where people use tools or workarounds and where they had obstacles. We've got a video on the YouTube channel. Just look up Delta CX Knowledge Design. So in our e-commerce project, we ended up designing into their page a way that you could enter your budget and the system would calculate how many of these you could get or afford. And not only did that fix the tool problem of people pulling out their calculator, but it fixed the knowledge problem that people were going to be surprised later by some of the fees when this calculator would take that into account. This was actually innovative because we saw 20 competitors during our research and nobody had enter your budget and we'll tell you how many you can get. Nobody had that. We invented that. The end. So you can see how a technique like this can go far beyond what we tend to do now and sometimes with just surveys or A/B testing. Type in task analysis Delta CX on YouTube to learn more. So we've got to change from being a feature factory to being more task-oriented. This was one of my pillars of customer centricity. Right now, a lot of teams start with requirements, user stories, or feature ideas. And then they just tell UX, we already know what we want to build, get us those screens. So we've decided the features first, everything's planned around that. But what if we're wrong? Now we've got a lot of risk, delay, or waste thinking we're fast by just already knowing what the features are. And feature-oriented processes are easy to start because they typically start with build. You saw user-centered design start with learn, but these often start with build with the learning coming later. They assume that we just need to learn later or any early learning is not as important as the learning we'll get later. But instead of being a feature factory, we want to shift towards being task-oriented. It's been around for decades. You can Google task-oriented design, and it's about making users' tasks the focal point, their workflows, their unmet needs. And the observational research will help us see where people's tasks are bad or inefficient. And once we have this research results, we can create that overarching product and UX strategy, work with product and engineering on prioritizing the pain points and opportunities we found. So notice we're prioritizing pain points and opportunities, not features. And then ultimately the features will come from the solution. So feature-oriented, feature first, make the solution. Task-oriented, solve the problem. Aha, these are our features. That's why it's different and better. Tri-track Agile, which I also didn't invent, so you can Google it, imagines there's 3 streams of work happening simultaneously. The first track is working on research, strategies, opportunities, and the artifacts from research. These feed a second track, which is research informed. And being data-driven sounds good, but we must include that qualitative research, the insights that come from that, and not just numbers we might have from a survey. This second track works on road mapping, architecting and designing the product, and testing and improving it. Notice that research is informing roadmaps. That's task-oriented design. And as that work is ready, it's fed into engineering's world. Now, this is going to require a lot of planning because engineering doesn't want to sit around and wait. But this is something that we absolutely can do. We have to be able to estimate our own time and be part of that planning process. And this also highlights the importance of separating our specialized researchers from our specialized designers. You might think combining those into one job is a good idea, but it's going to be really hard for someone to do 2 different streams of work at the same time. We're really setting that person up for mixed priorities and failure. So since we customer centricity needs us to care more about the quality of work being done, we want to make sure that we are making time for world-class research and world-class design done by world-class specialists. So got to blow through this slide quickly because it's a long one, but basically the process will end up looking like this at a high level. You've got to start with research. You find your root causes, needs, workflows, tasks, knowledge, and all of that, whether it's product discovery because we're going to innovate or it's some everyday thing or even a fix. Doesn't matter. We've got to start with knowing stuff. That's going to feed our three voices, product, UX, and engineering, who need to be an equal triad. They will then do that prioritization I was just talking about. And we've got a video on the YouTube channel about how to prioritize, so you can search Delta CX prioritization. It'll pop up. Now that we've decided priorities, everybody can do their road mapping. So now that we know we're going to work on this first and this second, or these two things at the same time with different teams, and then these two things, everybody can get planning and road mapping. And remember, this is not necessarily at the feature level. The feature will be decided by the solutions. We don't know the solutions yet. We're solution agnostic. We are still working in understanding that problem space and defining those problems. And then after that comes some more fun stuff like track agile, so that UX has its own streams of work that are not controlled by engineering. And then we're going to go back to research if we find during our work that there's something we don't know. So we want to use more research if we need to. And then eventually we're going to be looking at if there is an MVP, the right way to go is to look at the full car and say, is there a piece of this car or a smaller car that we can build? That way we have built for the true solution to the user need. Now, if engineering wants to make less than that, they can, but we should still be architecting and designing the full solution to the user need, something they would give 5 stars out of 5. And if you want to do an MVP, it's a 5 stars out of 5 smaller version. Now, we also need to talk about how Agile causes, in many cases, UX to be out of balance. And so we need to talk about resourcing and allocating our teams. We hear all day long that UX isn't agile, but really what makes us not agile is the resourcing and allocation. So if we've got a team where 4 developers and 2 QA want 4 sprints of work to do something, that's 6 people who want 8 weeks of work. That's normal. We don't call that big engineering up front. But when UX wants 8 weeks to do something, it's sacrilegious. People clutch their pearls and cry that UX must be bloated, old-fashioned, and waterfall. So we we assign somebody from UX to that team, and then we hope that they have enough time to do stuff. But the problem is that very often we don't assign one person to the team, we assign a third of a person because there's just not enough UX people to go around. So now not only do people expect something from us fast, but they expect it from 1/3 of a person. And now what about our researchers? We need them to do the research and testing. We never have enough of them. So now we've got bottlenecks. This staffing imbalance is efficient. It's never going to be agile, especially if you expect that one UX person to do everything. Research, interpretation, competitive analysis, content strategy, information architecture, interaction design, prototyping, visual design, and more. These jobs are unreasonable, and you're setting someone up for failure. No one can get all of this done well. So I'm suggesting, and I know this is a bit of a future dream, 5 UX people on a team. Hear me out. So when we did that corporate project I was just telling you about, we ended up finding that we needed 370 hours for research and 210 hours for design to do world-class work. Now, if we put one jack of all unicorns on that, that's 580 hours. Nobody wants to wait 19 weeks for one UX worker to do things well. That's when we end up saying, what can you get us in 3 days? And we're back in garbage universe. But what if we had that suggested team structure, which is what we did at our company? We had 3 researchers sharing that 370 hours, so it was about 4 weeks of work, maybe a little more. We had 2 designers sharing 210 hours of work, so that was about 4 weeks of work. hey, look at that, 8 weeks of work, 4 2-week sprints, however you want to put it. And that is because we staffed up correctly for the size of the project and the speed at which our agile buddies want us to move. You can't tell one person go faster. You have to add more people, and you have to add qualified people. Don't add a PM who's going to guess at research or design. Not the way to go, but I had to cut those slides for time. And this was a quick thing about sample timing, just to remind us that we have to estimate our own time and get that time. And we've got to work backwards from when we expect this to release. So make sure UX is getting the right amount of time to do world-class work. And if we're not, document it as risk, because if 6 to 10 engineers working on something for weeks or months is agile and totally normal, then 5 UX practitioners working on something for weeks or months is also agile and totally normal, and probably more agile than how you're allocating CX or UX today. So hire qualified CX and UX researchers, architects, designers, until there's no bottlenecks. That sounds easy, but you're going to have to fight. Your leaders are going to have to fight for budget and headcount. So my last few slides. Remember to tie customer centricity to business intelligence, customer intelligence, and risk mitigation. Business intelligence allows companies to create better strategies, goals, and initiatives. They'll have the right information to make better decisions. Risk identification and mitigation saves us time, money, customer trust, and all of those costs of poor quality. And we typically say yes to everything because we don't think we can say no. But who said we have to say yes to everything, especially unreasonable requests and unreasonable timeframes? Who said we have to say yes to people trying to change the very nature of our jobs and why we were hired? It's okay to say no, especially you leaders, managers, directors. We need this. Maybe we say yes this time, but we have to explain to teammates how it has to work differently next time. It's okay to say, no, that amount of time is unreasonable. You should have planned this with me so I can estimate my own time. It's okay to say, no, we need to do research here because we're providing business intelligence, trying to minimize risks, and trying to maximize customer satisfaction. No, engineering is not allowed to control what UX does, how they do it, who does it, and in what amount of time. No, we shouldn't hold a workshop on new features when we don't understand why our users do or don't do things. Let's know this first. And remember, document that as risk. Do it. Okay, so where can we start in our customer centricity adventures? Well, I would say it's something everybody can do. Critical thinking and asking questions, challenging the status quo, experimenting with new ways to do things, replacing "we can't do that" or "that's how we normally do it" with "let's figure out how to do it better." Empowering individuals and teams to be problem finders and problem solvers, not order takers. Learning from our failures, but preferably more of those failures not in the public eye. Research first, research often, find the data that'll help us make great decisions. Put yourself in users' and customers' shoes. Go into your website and app and try to accomplish your task. Was it awesome, easy, delightful, 5 stars out of 5? Would you recommend it to a friend? And then rather than going by our own opinions, let's improve our knowledge through research. And that's where our coworkers can start. It's a mindset shift that'll create a behavior shift. They're not just thinking differently, they should start acting differently. Think critically, ask questions, and push on the things we see going wrong. So thanks for putting up with the 50-minute version of a 9-hour workshop. I wish I could have gone into more detail on a lot of things. You can check out more information on Delta CX. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just remind everybody, I know I've just got a few minutes left, so I'm hoping to see everybody in the session that says the Transforming Toward Customer Centricity Q&A. I will happily take questions there until there are no more questions. You're welcome to disagree. You're welcome to tell me about your job. You're welcome to ask me just about anything. So let me stop sharing and return back. Here's Jesse. He's put on a vest. He's cold.
I'm cold. It's raining.
and it's raining inside. Hi, Marcella. And so, yeah, so I want to see everybody. I'm going to move over to the other session in a few minutes, but Jesse, anything we should
No,
go there?
really, thank you so much. You are like the voice in my head. It's incredible. Far more articulate than the voice in my head, I must say. That's I think this recording, I think the condensed version, frankly, is incredible. So, you know, as we say in French, chapeau for having reduced it down to that, because you get a lot of the key messages across. Sometimes these kind of challenges, I don't know what you think, but you know, probably worth it. And I hope you've enjoyed your brief stay on stage at 24 hours of UX. You know, there are a lot of folks in the audience who are new to UX, others who have been around for a long time, and a bunch of people in between. And you're right. There's been a ton of fads, a ton of buzzwords, a ton of Harvard Business Review articles, and you know, we're all sort of living with the consequences of all that. I love how you go back to user-centered design. You know, some of the fundamentals from years and years and years ago. I have colleagues that have been sort of preaching this silently, well, trying to get the message across for a long time, but you are fighting the good fight. So thank you, Debbie, so much for all that you're doing for the community. You're really also a very community-oriented person, so I encourage everybody here, and I mentioned it in the chat earlier, to follow Debbie on all her socials. Really, it's totally worth it. Read her books, and yeah, Debbie, this is not the last time we'll see you, I'm sure.
I hope not. Yeah, everybody, if you're interested in joining the community, our Slack community and other things are all free. So come on down to deltacx.com/links. And I do also encourage subscribing on YouTube. We have no sponsors, no affiliate links, and all of our ad revenue is donated to charity every month. So my YouTube channel is not about monetizing you, it's about helping you.